minutes. Inbound Kennedy. It's delays starting at Cumberland. It's 28 minutes. O'Hare to downtown. 15 from Montrose. 12 in the express lanes. Outbound 20 minutes downtown to the airport. Inbound Eisenhower 36 minutes. 390 to downtown. Outbound 25. Inbound Stevenson 26 minutes from the Veterans Memorial Tollway to Lakeshore Drive. Outbound it's 21. Ryan 15 minutes from 95th to downtown. I-57 running 12 minutes from I-80 to the merge. Bishop Ford 12 with delays starting around Stony Island. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with our AccuWeather meteorologist, Steve Williams.
Mostly cloudy, shower today, high 64. Clearing and chilly tonight, low 49. It'll be a sunny day tomorrow, high 57. Partly sunny, windy Saturday, the high near 81. Plan with confidence this spring. Download the AccuWeather app today. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
Still a little drizzle in the area, but most of the rain is gone. 48 at O'Hare. Next news, 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continuing next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. The theme of Senator Tim Scott's response to Joe Biden's not State of the Union address last night was that you find the much ballyhooed common ground that politicians always speak of when you employ common sense, and that includes on race.
Nowhere do we need common ground more desperately than in our discussions of race. I have experienced the pain of discrimination. I know what it feels like to be pulled over for no reason, to be followed around the store while I'm shopping. I remember every morning at the kitchen table, my grandfather would open the newspaper and read it, I thought. But later I realized he had never learned to read it. He just wanted to set the right example. I've also experienced a different kind of intolerance. I get called Uncle Tom and the N-word by progressives, by liberals. Just last week, a national newspaper suggested my family's poverty was actually privilege. Oh my God. Because a relative owned land generations before my time. Believe me, I know firsthand our healing is not finished. In 2015, after the shooting of Walter Scott, I wrote a bill to fund body cameras. Last year, after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, I built an even bigger police reform proposal. But my Democratic colleagues blocked it. I extended an olive branch. I offered amendments, but Democrats used a filibuster to block the debate from even happening. My friends across the aisle seemed to want the issue more than they wanted a solution.
Bingo. And what he was referencing with the fact-checking his family's history, that was done by the...
Which one? What hack news organization?
Yes, I mean, he's just so awful. Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post, the Amazon Post. Because while what Tim Scott says about his grandfather may be true, his great-great-grandfather was able to amass some land in his time. Eric Erickson had offered good context to this, too. Eric Erickson, radio talk show host. He's from Macon County, Georgia. He writes, using legal records, one can find land ownership, middle classes, and good education among post-Civil War black families. It takes a closer look at real lives lived to see the constant fear, the bullying, the legal jeopardy, the degradation of schools, and the need to drop out to protect hard-fought-for family land. It takes seeing the forest for the trees. Well, seeing the forest for the trees Good luck getting that from the D.C. press corps, the likes of Glenn Kessler, the Amazon Post, and most of those other outlets. And that's exactly what Tim Scott was speaking to. And his last line there about wanting the issue, regardless not only of indifferent not only to a solution, but indifferent to the reality on the ground, seeing the forest again in America, what race relations actually are in America in 2021 versus what the left wants you to believe they are, and thus the need to marginalize Tim Scott by these ghastly white leftists. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Brendan O'Neill. He's the editor of Spiked Online. Brendan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hi there.
Want the issue, not a resolution to the issue, or even an acknowledgement of the extent of the problem. Poignant words from Senator Scott.
Absolutely, and completely right. I think there's a lot of people out there who want to drag this issue on, the issue of racism and conflict and racial awareness, whatever language they use. There are a lot of people out there who benefit from this issue and who benefit from these kinds of divisions. We had a similar situation in the UK a couple of weeks ago. The government here published a report which found that racism in the UK has declined enormously over the past few decades. Ethnic minority people are doing fantastically well in education. Their employment opportunities have improved enormously. And there was this fierce reaction from race grifters, from think tanks, from the commentariat, all of whom like the idea that Britain is a racist country. They benefit from that idea. It gives them a sense of purpose. So there are large numbers of people out there who don't want to solve the issue of racism. They want to exacerbate it.
And our friend Eric Hoffman, a friend of the show, who's a professor, poli-sci professor at University of London, he published a study that he did, his work, that we talked about with him on this show. It also made its way into a column by Jason Riley at the Wall Street Journal. And this is critical to what Tim Scott is saying, what you're saying as well about the situation in the UK, which is nobody's saying that racism didn't exist, and nobody's saying racism doesn't exist. But for example, approval of black-white intermarriage rose among whites from about 4% in 1958 to 45% in 1995 to 84% in 2013. In 2017, fewer than 10% of whites in a major Pew survey said that interracial marriage was a quote-unquote bad thing. And, of course, the share of interracial marriages has exploded across every demographic to no consternation among the overwhelming majority of the population of said races. But that's just not something you would take away from the way the D.C. press corps in this country covers the issue.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. No one, well, very few people, certainly not me. I'm not saying that there aren't still racists out there and that they say obnoxious things. Of course, those people are out there. They're on the internet. They're saying stupid stuff, and they should be confronted whenever people encounter them. But racism as a social force, racism as a widely held belief, that has declined massively in recent decades in both the US and the UK. Now, the US and the UK are very different countries. We have different experiences with racism and with immigration and so on. So there are differences, but one commonality is that there is much more openness now to having a relaxed attitude to the question of where people come from, what skin color they have. You know, Martin Luther King's dream of a society that judges people by character rather than color, we've actually pretty much achieved that, which is a really good thing and something worth celebrating. But instead of celebrating that, what we have is this new elites, this new left, these new woke activists who want us to believe that nothing has really changed, nothing has really improved. America is still a horrible white supremacist country born in the sin of slavery. Britain is still a horrible country with hangovers from empire and colonialism. They push this very depressing, anti-human message that there has been no improvement at all. And I think that's where the real prejudice is coming from today. It's coming from those sections of society who want us all to believe that we live in horrible countries full of prejudiced people.
And you wrote an article, so now cops are racist, even when they save a black person's life. What did people in the UK make of the shooting of Micaiah Bryant?
People were really shocked by the response to it, and there are some people in the UK who will share the Black Lives Matter worldview, which is that any encounter between a white police officer and a black citizen is by definition racist. There are some people who will hold that view, but most people looked at this case, they saw the body cam footage, they saw the stills from the body cam footage in which you can clearly see that Micaiah Bryant was wielding a knife and seemed to be milliseconds away from using it against another young woman. They saw all that, and they can't believe people are still calling this cop racist. They're still saying this is an unjust situation, a barbaric situation, proof that America is still a racist country. Most people are shocked by that reaction. And most people are saying, well, my view, certainly, is that the people who are saying that Micaiah Bryant shouldn't have been shot, what they're actually saying is that Micaiah Bryant should have been allowed to stab that other girl. We have to be really clear about that. When they're calling for a hands-off approach by the police, when they're saying that officer should have stood back or tried to arrest Micaiah Bryant, when they're saying defund the police, abolish the police, they're actually saying that a young woman like Micaiah Bryant should have been allowed to do what she was doing. And so do they really think Black Lives Matter? Because it strikes me that the young girl in the pink tracksuit who seemed to be on the cusp of serious injury or death, it seems to me that black life doesn't matter to these kinds of campaigners.
Yeah, and that girl in that pink tracksuit, she seemed to indicate, she was about to stab me and the police shot her. Like, I'm glad the police were there. The other interesting thing is that Bryant's mom said, well, it was Micaiah who called the police. Well, that's interesting, too. Micaiah called the police because she had a fear for her safety at some point, if that bears out to be the fact. But unfortunately, when the police arrived, she was the aggressor running around trying to stab people. And then the contortions that the left has to go into in order to force this into a racial issue or an issue of racism, coming up with explanations like, knife fighting is just horseplay among teenagers.
Yeah. I know, it's just horrific. Some of that commentary has been horrific. It's largely coming from people who are quite comfortably off, who probably live in very nice neighborhoods, who might even live in gated communities. And then on their Twitter feeds or on their soapboxes, they're essentially saying, let these poor black people have their knife fight. I mean, that's what they're saying. They've been so hoodwinked and so brainwashed by the Black Lives Matter worldview, which is this idea that America is a white supremacist country and all cops are racist and all black people are victims. They've been so brainwashed by that view that they can actually sit there in their lovely offices or their lovely homes and say, well, it's just a knife fight. What are you getting so wound up about? And they're not taking moral responsibility for what they're saying. Because if they did take moral responsibility for what they were saying, they would admit that they thought that the girl in the pink tracksuit, her life was worth less than Micaiah Bryant's. And if she had been stabbed to death, that would have been less bad than Micaiah Bryant being shot by a cop. I mean, that's really what they're saying here. They can't admit it, but that is what they're saying. And this really shows how deranged this worldview has become, because the idea of abolishing the police or defunding the police or getting the police out of these situations would lead to terrible incidents like this, would lead to more stabbings and more knife fights. And they seem to be pretty comfortable with that, which I think is a repugnant way to view society.
Yeah, and we see this borne out in some of the survey results, too, where black Americans have much more common sense than certainly the left does. Mm-hmm. If it was their child in that incident with the knife fight, I'm sure their opinion would have been different. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing that goes with police. It's like, we don't trust police. We want to defund police. And black Americans disproportionately living in some of these violent, crime-ridden neighborhoods are saying, no, we don't.
Yeah, and it's the exact same social dynamic here in the UK. The people in the UK who want to abolish the police or get the police off the streets, I can assure you they are all upper middle class, overeducated, very privileged young people, young activists. And if you talk to working class people in this country or black communities and Asian communities and other communities here, They want more police on the streets. They want bobbies on the beat, as we call them here. They want police officers walking up and down high streets, keeping an eye on people, keeping things in place. So this anti-police worldview has become the property of the new elites, these people who live very comfortable lives, who largely don't have to worry about the scourge of crime or the scourge of street violence. And so they have this fantasy view of how society should operate. And so that comes from a place of privilege, to use a word that those campaigners love to use themselves. That worldview comes from a place of privilege, whereas, as you say, Black Americans, Latinos, many working class people, they know that the police have a difficult job to do, and they want the police to do their job.
And the coverage, too. I mean, for example, the beating of this 61-year-old Asian man in New York City, where he was in an induced coma. He was beaten so badly. Well, there's an ex-con who's in custody for that beating. He happens to be a black person. And so now the coverage, the hashtag campaign Stop Asian Hate, and the coverage of that has just dissipated into the ether because, again, that's not a story that fits their narrative, their, as you said, fanciful worldview.
That's right. And I think this is all part of the mess of identity politics, because what identity politics does, it organizes the whole of humankind into these rigid boxes. You're either oppressed or privileged. You're either a good person, you're a put upon person, you're down at the bottom of the pile, you need all our sympathy, or you're a hyper-privileged person who needs to atone for all their sins and self-flagellate and check your privilege. They have this very childish understanding of society, and as a consequence of that, when you have a situation where an African-American man attacks an Asian person, it doesn't compute for these identitarians. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense in their worldview, because black people are oppressed. Asians are becoming a bit more privileged because they're doing very well in terms of education. So they can't work out who's in the right and who's in the wrong. There's a similar situation in Europe. In Europe at the moment, we have a pretty serious problem with Muslim anti-Semitism. Now, most Muslims actually have settled into Europe very well, but there is a problem of Muslim anti-Semitism, particularly in France, where there have been numerous violent attacks by Muslims against Jews. And the left in Europe never talks about this, because in their mind, Muslims are oppressed, Jews are privileged, and so therefore it doesn't make sense. So they don't actually think that all lives matter. They don't actually think that all people deserve respect and all people deserve protection from violence and racism. They only think that the people who they are most approving of should enjoy that kind of respect, and everyone else can just be left to their own devices. So we're starting to see what a moral cesspit identity politics has created.
He is Brendan O'Neill. He's the editor of Spiked Online. You should follow his work. Always very good. Brendan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you aware that AmericanEagle.com has been designing websites since the internet started? Do you know they've helped companies large and small achieve results that they themselves thought impossible? Today, a well-designed website is an art form. There are no cookie-cutter solutions. At AmericanEagle.com, they are proud to design and develop a website that fits their client's business. Their experience shows that a well-designed website with the client's business at the forefront will bring an excellent return on their investment. Clients, from startups to medium and large businesses, have come to rely on them for a full line of website services, from consulting and integration to digital strategy and marketing, hosting, and maintenance. AmericanEagle.com is the technology partner you need if you're looking for online success. They work with all kinds of companies in nearly every industry. Give the team at AmericanEagle.com a call today, 1-877-WEB-NOW-1. Let them help you achieve online results and success. AmericanEagle.com, that number again, 1-877-WEB-NOW and the number 1, 1-877-WEB-NOW-1.
All right. They're focused on your health and your happiness. Of course, I'm speaking about Balance of Nature. And the founder, Dr. Howard, has dedicated his life to a product that he believes will help you lead a better and healthier and happier life. I take Balance of Nature because I want to boost my immune system. And doctors who have been on the show say get enough sleep, exercise, and eat a well-balanced diet. But who's doing that? especially during stressful times. So that's where Balance of Nature comes in. 6 capsules, you're getting 10 servings of 31 different fruits and veggies. And you hear stories all the time about how people's lives have changed. Those are not actors, folks. And the next story could be yours. So order your bottles of fruits and veggies today. 35% off and free shipping off your first preferred order. The number to call is 800-246-8751. That's 800-246-8751. Use discount code Chicago or go online to balanceofnature.com. Discount code Chicago.
If you have kids in school, then this past year has been a major wake-up call. All of a sudden, many of the things you once took for granted